This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, coming to you live from the D Hotel in Las Vegas at Bar Canada, alongside the Circa Sportsbook. Great show tonight, or this afternoon, I should say, even earlier here in Vegas. Time not a strength right now. Still trying to figure out what time it's here as opposed to in Winnipeg. Good news is Lock Shop's in the can. Check that out. Just finished that with Dustin Nielsen a little earlier. You can check that out on our Twitter feeds. Although if you do listen to the podcast, wherever you're getting this podcast, do us a favor. Look up the Lock Shop and give us a sub. And if you're on Twitter as well, we're giving away a hoodie. We get up to 1,000 followers on Twitter at Lock Shop Bets. But right now, it's all about Winnipeg Sports Talk and a lot of Winnipeg hockey talk coming up today. Brian Munz, voice of the Ice, our good friend, is in PA as the Ice look to try to take a 3-0 series lead this evening against the Raiders. Munzy's going to join us from PA coming up in about 20 minutes. We'll have our daily Jets chat with Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press after practice today as the team gets ready for game number 80 of 82 tomorrow night against the Philadelphia Flyers, one of the few teams in the league that could maybe challenge the Jets for as disappointing a season as they have had. Then, of course, finishing it up with Calgary on Friday, and then that postponed game from last week, the Seattle Kraken, on Sunday afternoon, part of a big fan appreciation weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. And then, considering I'm here in Vegas, but in addition to it, the biggest game tonight in the National Hockey League is the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. Dallas can eliminate Vegas with a regulation win. I'm going to find out what the hell is going on with this hockey team. And, you know, Gary and Shane busy getting ready for the broadcast tonight, but we will have Ken Boehlke of Sinbin.Vegas join us, talk about the Robin Lehner saga that has been happening over the last few days, as well as really a potential last stand for the Vegas Golden Knights coming up this evening. Busy slate of games in the National Hockey League. We'll get to all of those as well, and we'll do that with Michael Remis coming up in just a second. Of course, this show does not happen without the great support we get from our amazing team of sponsors. A big thank you to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Not Auto Corp, Breezy Bend Country Club, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, Coolbet Canada, our betting partners. So let's get to it. A couple of interesting comments coming out of the media sessions of Jets practice today, and a Cole Perfetti sighting, albeit in a yellow non-contact jersey. Let's get Michael Remis in here to get this Tuesday afternoon going. Remo, what's up? How you doing, man?
Us feeling good, enjoying our lovely time here in Vegas. Great night for being in Vegas for some sports betting. I think there were like 13 games on the schedule. I'm in my fantasy final, so I'm excited about that. But also last week of Jets, looking forward to seeing what we're going to be seeing from them on the ice tomorrow against the Flyers, and Friday and Sunday as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's seemingly we haven't really talked about the weather here in Winnipeg the last couple of days. No, not as much storm talk, but like I think we got to make a Winnipeg pothole talk. Yeah, driving around, it's like a video game, Huss. I'm going like this, like over and over. People on the podcast can't see me trying to like swerve in and out. It's insanity out there. Thankfully,
the worst thing about that was with all the water that happened over the course of the weekend. I mean, you can't see. Like you don't have the opportunity in many cases even to try to avoid the potholes. And I mean, these potholes are borderline sinkholes at times. I mean, I had to pop by and see a friend out in Tuxedo when I was coming on Taylor Avenue I guess, east towards Route 90. I mean, this looked like there had been, artillery shelling happening on
Yes.
the roads. I mean, it is brutal. Like, I'm not even sure that a Sherman tank could handle Winnipeg roads right now. So, yeah, I guess it'll be good for the people that are involved in fixing suspensions of vehicles right now. That being said, is it warmed up at all? I mean, I know yesterday was ridiculously cold, an all-time low high for the date in April in Winnipeg history.
I'm still got my winter jacket on. I don't know if I need to, but that's where I'm at. Still taking out the winter jacket. So, yeah, it's pretty not spring weather. I'll say that.
Well, I don't want to rub it in. I looked out my window and it was 29 Celsius today. I've been inside. It's very nice and cool in here right now. It's sort of the calm before the storm as things get going. And yeah, you mentioned, I mean, Bar Canada, where we're doing the show right now here in the D, is sort of a Canadian hockey bar is what they promote it as. So, I mean, hockey's always got priority on the televisions. Well, last night there was one stinking game, and it was the Flyers and the Chicago Blackhawks. So not quite the matchup that was gathering the attention of everyone. I'll tell you what was, though, Reem. The Brooklyn Nets being bounced in 4 straight and swept by the Boston Celtics, and then myself and a couple of other Canadians glued to the gutsy performance of the Toronto Raptors going into Philly, facing elimination, winning convincingly as 8-point underdogs. And they bring that series back to Toronto for game number 6. I was just looking over my shoulder. Sixers opened as a very slight 1.5-point favorite in that game. I got to tell you, I think the Raptors have what it takes to get this series back to Philly for a 7th game. And if that happens, all the pressure will be on the 76ers as the Raptors, even without Fred VanVleet, have a lot of momentum after just that brilliant performance last night.
Yeah, I'll say this about the Nets. I think everyone thinks it's so easy to just build a championship team, slap a couple superstars together, and hope everyone gets along. Not that easy, and it's amazing to me that the Miami Heat were able to do what they did. Now, they did have LeBron, although some could argue that Kevin Durant player is pretty good himself, but I think it just makes the Miami Heat's run and LeBron James' run so impressive over the last, 15 years, and Brooklyn thought they could create a super team, and here they are swept. Seemed like there were a lot of issues. Kyrie, Ben Simmons hurt his back and didn't want to play. So disappointing for them. Happy for everyone else. As far as the Raptors, I mean, pretty impressive. We were talking yesterday. It's going to be tough without VanVleet, and there they are, 3-2. Could make it. When you're in 3-2, I mean, you just have to have that one game mentality, because when you get to game 7, it's anybody's game. So I think major pressure on Philly. Don't want to be that blow that Rio lead. That would be pretty rough. So the Raptors seem to have a little momentum here heading into the next one.
Well, they absolutely do. I mean, it was an incredible performance last night by the Raps, and we'll look forward to Game 6. I'm already seeing, just pandemonium in the GTA of people trying to get their hands on tickets for Game 6. Listen, we know that the fans will come out. It's going to be a great, great atmosphere for that game. And, as someone that on the Long Shop said this series is going 7, we're still alive. And I'll tell you what, would love to see the Raptors get to 7, and at that point, anything is possible. All that being said, let's focus in on the hockey scene. We are going to be talking Winnipeg Ice playoffs before Game 3 tonight with Munzy coming up in a few minutes. But the Jets did get back to practice today, Remo, and Cole Perfetti was out there in a yellow jersey. Now, he's not going to play in the final 3 games. He will not play for the Manitoba Moose. I would imagine there'll be some speculation. I guess potentially a World Championships. He went last year, if that's something that is possible for, just health-wise. And then, of course, there's the World Junior Hockey Championships in August. And I didn't think that there was a chance that Perfetti would go back and play for Team Canada in the tournament this summer. Maybe I should rethink that a little bit right now, considering the fact that it's been like a couple months as he's been out of the lineup. And it'll be a long time he won't have played hockey. Maybe that experience in August would be good for him to prepare for a full NHL camp and cracking the team and being an important player right out of the gate next season for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, that's been a question has the last couple weeks. Every day someone's in chat saying, what's the Perfetti update? We need to hear about Perfetti. And it was over the weekend. Dave Lowry said that Scheifele won't play the rest of the season and Perfetti, but there he was. And I kind of agree with you. I was on the train that there's no way they're going to let this guy play in the World Juniors this summer. But if he's, in a yellow non-contact jersey now, and the World Juniors are in August, I mean, he can't play. If he could play with the Moose in the playoffs, I would be like, yeah, but he wasn't on the roster at the deadline. He was in the NHL, so he's not eligible. So I'm on the train. Maybe they do let him play in the World Juniors. Because if you're going to, or, if you would let him play in the World Championships, and maybe he might make the team, might not, then why, and he doesn't make the team, then why not let him play in the World Juniors? So I guess the timing.
I think it's first going to come down to a personal choice as to whether he wants to. And I guess we'll probably hear from Cole at some point, or at least at the end of the season, I would imagine. And get some clarity as to whether that's something that he would even entertain. Because I think for a lot of players, and first of all, what is this World Junior Tournament going to be like? I mean, I'm glad they're doing it, and I think the young players, the young men that had the opportunity to represent their country and had it taken away because of what happened with COVID around Christmas, were robbed of what for many of them will be the highlight of their hockey career. But if you are, Cole Perfetti, that's already played significant time in the National Hockey League and presumably will be a National Hockey Leaguer next year, do you think of this tournament the same way as you would something that really captivates the entire country, at Christmas time? I guess the other question is anyone even going to be paying attention to this tournament? And on top of it all, no Russians. Playing against the Russians, the Russian contingent has always been a big part of that tournament. So if the competition's watered down a little bit, if there's a number of players that were on the club at Christmas aren't playing this summer, I do wonder how attractive it will be. But I kind of think that this is going to come down to a personal decision for Perfetti, as I mentioned, as to what puts him in the best situation to give him the best shot to come out and be an impact player in training camp, to earn himself the best spot and opportunity with the Winnipeg Jets, and to have the best season he can as an NHLer next season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's goal number one, and I kind of agree with you. I don't know how this World Juniors is going to be received. As you said, no Russians. It's in the summer, alternative scheduling. But I guess if he wants to play and he wants that time in to get ready, and he has had, hasn't played the full season after playing, last year with the Moose, with the World Juniors. I mean, he had a pretty World Championships. He had a long year last year. He's had some time off here. Maybe he does want to play, but, again, practicing today, non-contact, yellow jersey, positive sign. And we can speculate as we want going forward, but I think he's going to be a big part of this team next year for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, one of the other things that we'll talk to Mike McIntyre about when Mike joins us, we'll hit on that, as well as the comments from Neal Pionk today. And, I haven't yet heard them, but finishing up Lock Shop, just checking in with some of the guys that were down at the rink today. Neal Pionk spoke after the game and referred to the season as embarrassing. And listen, well, I guess we'll get to Pionk individually in a second. I think there's a lot of people that share that feeling, especially within that Jets locker room. And Pionk himself has had a really tough season. Now, whether that has anything to do with the knee to the head he took from Jason Spezza on the 5th of December against the Toronto Maple Leafs in that spirited game downtown Winnipeg, I'm not sure. But he certainly has had his fair share of issues this year, and hasn't been the guy that we saw last year and the year before play so well and play such an important role for the Winnipeg Jets. And with Pionk dropping off, it speaks to the incredible season that Josh Morrissey's had and how important that has been for the Winnipeg Jets. But the thing that I like to hear is that he said that this team needs to take to get away, to spend plenty of time self-reflecting on each individual's role in what happened this year, how they can be better, and then come back next season with a real legitimate chip on their shoulder. I mean, sometimes this team sort of tried to, and I think this goes to Blake Wheeler, we've talked about it beforehand, sort of tried to fabricate or come up with a reason to be mad or have this chip on the shoulder. They've given themselves all the reason they need this year with the disappointing end to what was a very promising season coming out of the gate. And that's exactly what I think most people would like to hear, that, they do want to come back, make amends to themselves and the fan base, and be a hell of a lot better next season than they were this year, obviously not participating in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, and here's the comments, Mike McIntyre tweeting them out. let's be honest, it was kind of embarrassing what we did this year. We had a really good roster and totally underachieved. When I look in the mirror, I'm embarrassed. I don't think I played as best as I could all year. I think if everyone goes in the summer and does that self-evaluation and we all come back, it'll be a lot better. So just echoing what you said, there's the complete quote. And I think you want to hear it straight from them. You don't want to hear any more excuses. I know, we've heard time zone and young team in the past, but this was a team that was expected to be in the playoffs, and you want to hear some accountability. They're saying, hey, you know what? We were not good enough this year for whatever reason, and they're going to look and try to do it back in. There's probably going to be some changes to the roster. We'll have to wait and see what they are, but I think you like to hear that kind of honesty. You want to feel like the players do care, and they have acknowledged that, they didn't perform to what the expectations were. And as for Neal Pionk, personally, I think it was a down year for him. He had COVID and, New Year's. He was stuck. You don't know how much that affected him, but then he had the concussion from Jason Spezza, which you mentioned. Maybe there was also a lower body issue. He seemed to have battled injuries all year, and he just hasn't been the same player. Morrissey's kind of, as you said, overtook him. Morrissey's playing on power play 1 now, and Pionk we haven't got that production from him this year that we have in the past years.
Yeah, and listen, I appreciate that sort of frankness. I mean, I don't think there's anything that would anger Jets fans more than, hearing anything but that sort of frank honesty about where the season has been right now, from the team. And as I said, we've spent a lot of time, really coming out of that miserable road trip for the club where, they got absolutely rolled over by some of the best teams in the league. But they'd already knew that they weren't going to be making the playoffs. But I think that was maybe just an exclamation point on where this team has fallen to this year and what needs to happen to turn things around. And, Neal Pionk, I know doesn't wear a letter, but he's been a very important part of this club for the last few seasons. And, that sort of personal accountability, I think, goes a long way to, at least making people realize that this team knows the same thing that we've been talking about all season long. They were capable of more. It didn't happen. And the big question, and it's not for Neal Pionk, it is for the powers that be within the Jets organization as to what will change to hopefully, get better results next season. But you can put in a new coach. You can change players. There will be the majority of the guys with this club will be back. I think that's safe to say, barring an absolutely wild summer. And every one of those players, I think, needs to be better, but do exactly what Neal Pionk said. Some real self-reflection on what happened to make sure that it does not happen again. And that being said, as I mentioned yesterday, I thought this team showed something in that win over Colorado on Sunday to be able to play like that with nothing to play for other than, as Blake Wheeler said, some self-respect and showing the fans that, they're still going to be there and give them their all. It was a nice result. It was a nice start to this trip. And, they'll have a chance to, maybe get a few more good feelings after games with some wins before probably next Monday. It's going to be plenty of conversations very similar to what we just heard from Neal Pionk discussing the overall disappointment of the 2021-2022 season. Yeah,
just going over Neal Pionk's stats here. 2 years ago with the Jets, 2019-20, he had 45 points in 71 games. Last year, I think he was on pace for more, 32 and 54. But this year, he's kind of done the same thing he did last year, but in 20 more games. And he's played 74 games this year. He's got 34 points. Same number of goals as last season, 3. So, bit of a disappointing year for Neal Pionk. And I see comments in chat, Lynn saying she expects a rebound from Pionk, and I kind of agree. I think this year we were expecting a rebound from Dubois, which we definitely saw. Josh Morrissey, we saw, and I think Pionk's, as we mentioned before, he's battled injuries. I would expect him to be better, and I think he's a guy who says, self-reflection and I need to be better. I think he's a guy who's going to be able to do that, but. He's one of those veteran defensemen, Huss, that the Jets have locked up for a number of years. Will we see some retooling there? And I don't think you want to sell low on Neal Pionk, but there's a veteran defenseman on the Jets roster now that will not be on the team next year, and who will be? And I think that's going to be the guessing game we're playing off season until it happens.
Well, and you know what? You make a great point. And, of course, I mean, the Jets did sign Pionk to, I believe it was a 4-year deal last offseason. And that was the last deal that got done of multi-year. Listen, they basically decided they had Pionk, they had Andrew Kopp. They could sign one guy to a deal in that neighborhood, and it was Pionk. And listen, I'm a fan of Neal Pionk, and I think he's been great for those 2 years beforehand. But you make a great point that, you know, with the bounce-back seasons of Pierre-Luc Dubois and Josh Morrissey, there was some real regression and difficulties of Neal Pionk and a couple guys up front that, you know, sort of negated any gains from what Dubois and Morrissey were able to do compared to their performances last year, and that was all part of it. I mean, bottom line is, I mean, I don't think there's many players, you know, including those guys that we just mentioned, that actually had big bounce-back seasons, outside of maybe Kyle Connor, that could look and say, you know, that was as good as it gets for me. So that'll be a big part of what the offseason is, and I imagine this Winnipeg Jets team, after they take a little bit of time to get away from hockey, you know, if they're spending some time watching the Stanley Cup playoffs, which I imagine most of those guys will be doing, you'd think and you certainly hope it'll get that fire going for a great off-season of work, of training, and to come in to be as good as possible for, you know, the first practice for whoever coaching this club, with a mission to avoid what happened earlier this year. Just quickly on the lines from practice today, Reem. Hark's back up with Dubois and Connor. Jansen Harkins after, you know, a nice assist to Kyle Connor on his 45th of the season. And I like this. I mean, I think in some ways, I think this is a reward for Jansen Harkins for maybe being a good soldier over the course of this year. We've talked at length about how the fourth line hasn't played Harkins' role. And I can't really remember any game where I looked at Jansen Harkins and say, man, you know, he's just not got it today, or he's not there. More often than not, we basically were talking about Jansen Harkins as to not being on the ice because the team didn't play it. So, you know, he did well. And Barron and Sanford was back at practice today. They were rotating in along with Lowry and Appleton on that third line, Ehlers, Stastny, Wheeler, and then Brooks, Toninato, and Svechnikov on the fourth line. It looks like Dylan Samberg with Pionk, Morrissey, DeMello, Dylan Schmidt, and Stanley is the seventh defenseman. And obviously Hellebuck and Comrie. Sanford out of the non-contact jersey. As we mentioned, Cole Perfetti did skate today, but in the non-contact jersey. We're going to get back to the Jets with Mike McIntyre. Maybe we'll get some thoughts from Munzy on the Jets too, but it's all about the ice right now as Winnipeg is up 2-0 and heading out to PA. We'll bring Brian in just a minute. First off, though, a big thanks to Wallace & Wallace, our newest sponsor, Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialist. They've been serving residential and commercial customers for over 75 years here in Winnipeg as the leaders in the industry. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter has done a number on your old one, give them a call. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood, they've got the right fence for you. And if it's time to replace your garage door, Wallace & Wallace has Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors, and expert that can come down, give you a free estimate, so you can give them a call at 204-452-2700 to set that up, or visit them at wallacefences.com, or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Road off Kenniston. Hey, summer is just about here. Well, spring is just about here for Winnipeg, but we know what that means. Weddings, grads, and more. And listen, you probably haven't worn a suit very much over the last couple of years, but times are changing in a good way. Every guy needs at least one suit that fits and looks great, and F Apparel's custom suits for men start at just $400. All of the newest spring and summer fabrics and patterns are in, over 250 of them for you to choose from. So make your way down to 190 Smith Street or fapparel.com to make an appointment and find out more. And, of course, if you do, they are the leader in weddings in town. If you are planning a wedding, whether it be for this year or the following year, don't rent a bunch of suits for your wedding party. Talk to F Apparel. You get 15% off for the entire group. And Andrew and the gang will make you guys look great, and you'll be able to use those suits again and look great for future events, not just being one and done. And our friends over at Vita Health Fresh Market have a lot going on, including Winnipeg's best prices on natural and, well, they basically have it all. You know, supplements, in supplements, organic, natural groceries, beauty products, and all at great prices with an amazing staff trained on these products to help you get what you need. If you're into organic produce, local grass-fed meats, they've got that. Bison steaks for the barbecue this summer, to mention a great grab-and-go deli with Vitamarket salads, sandwiches, soups, and more. They've got the new fully shoppable website at myvita.ca, so you can go online, get everything you need, and schedule a delivery with Instacart. But this Friday is Customer Appreciation Day, 10% off just about everything in the store. So if you've been waiting to pick up some of those vitamins, supplements, or maybe try out the great offerings at Vita, why don't you do it on Friday, April 29th, and get a great deal at the same time. More information at myvita.ca. Pop down any of their 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. All right, let's talk ice. Great weekend at the Ice Cave. Ice, the #1 team in the Western Hockey League, up to nothing. And some travel issues for both teams coming out of the weekend. Brian Munz has safely arrived in PA before tonight's Game 3 and joins us now on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Munzie, what's going on? How are you?
I'm good, Huss. I had to throw my ice blue jacket on from our friends at F Apparel for you real quick. I saw the promo during the break there.
You're good. You're good.
Threw the jacket on for you to start the program, but it's about 1,000 degrees in my hotel room, so I got to take it off. Shout out to the boys at F.
No doubt. Hey, listen, before we talk about the games on the weekend and this game tonight, listen, I mean, what's been happening in southern Manitoba weather-wise has been, dealing everybody, a few curveballs. But, in some ways, I'm sure it was pretty cool for the PA Raiders to be able to all get up to the press box and check out the Jets Avalanche game on Sunday night. But from your side of things, and maybe the coaches and general managers sorts of things, you don't anticipate that sort of a change of plans in the middle of a playoff series. Fill us in on what your team, as well as the Raiders, were dealing with coming out of the first 2 games at the Ice Cave on the weekend.
Well, you don't expect it, but isn't it just kind of fitting with everything that's gone on the last couple of years? Like, it's another line or chapter in the book, really, when you think about everything that's gone on. But, you know what? We all went through the crazy rain and the wind that happened over the weekend. And then, southern Saskatchewan was hit hard where there was no opportunity for anybody really to travel anywhere. And Brandon Wheat Kings got caught up with it in their series coming back from Red Deer. Took them a lot longer to get back from Alberta. So the safest thing to do for both teams, everybody was kind of set to go yesterday morning or Sunday morning, I guess it was. And just couldn't leave. So everybody hunkered down. And as you allude to, the Raiders went and watched the Colorado game, and it was good for them because, Josh Morrissey played in the game, and then Josh Manson, who's from Prince Albert, played 40 minutes for the Avalanche. So I know they thought it was pretty cool to get out and see those guys. And the 2 teams both respectively practiced yesterday morning and then jumped on the bus and made our way in here. We got in about 45 minutes after they did because we stopped in Saskatoon for supper, and both teams went through their pregame skates this morning, and we're all ready to go tonight for Game 3. Good
stuff. Well, the Ice certainly were ready to go for their first real playoff series here in Winnipeg. They've been such a long time coming. I mean, and I'll tell you what, I'm glad that at least the Ice have had this season this year as opposed to one of the last couple of years, because the excitement about what this team could be capable of would have been incredibly disappointing to not get a chance to do it. Playoffs are here. Atmosphere was great. A ton of people that, maybe hadn't had a chance to get out to the ice went out and saw it on the weekend. And, man, they saw 2 exactly what you'd hope to start the playoffs. I mean, 2 strong games in both ends of the Winnipeg Ice. For the Winnipeg Ice, and a 2-0 lead. Fill us in on your thoughts on how the weekend went for the home squad.
Well, let's start with the atmosphere because you brought that up first. It was second to none. Like, there was standing room only around the top of the arena, and it was fantastic. Like, it was a ton of fun, and the players were talking about it on the bus yesterday. We're expecting a hornet's nest here tonight in PA. There's not a ticket available, or there's very few anyway. It's single seats in the building, and from the years that I spent here, now it's 20 years ago, but, they bring the old, the milk crates out, the big plastic boxes that people stand on, and they're a couple rows deep in the standing room area. So it's going to be a fantastic atmosphere here tonight. So both buildings are smaller, but people are jammed into it. So the players get real up close and personal with everybody involved in both seating capacities. And then on the ice, Winnipeg just kind of continued to do what they did during their 68-game regular season schedule, and that's roll through their 4 lines and their 6 defensemen, and Daniel Hauser was terrific in net, and the Ice have been the better special teams team so far. The Ice are 4 for 7 on the power play, and PA is 0 for 8, and they chased Tikhon Chaika, the starting goalie for PA in Game 2. So, it was a really good start to the series, but the Ice know that they're in for a whole new animal coming up here tonight at 8 o'clock Winnipeg time for sure.
Munzy, you mentioned the power play and special teams in particular, and we had that great conversation heading into the playoffs last weekend on the program with James Patrick. We were talking to him a little bit about, the way he'd handled practice, because they had some times where they're playing weekend games, they had plenty of time to practice, and he said more than at a normal time, we'd spent a lot of times focusing on special teams. And I mean, listen, this team has done pretty much everything well throughout the entire year, but that really did seem a focus of James going into the practices, heading into game number 1. And I imagine James and the coaching staff were pretty pleased at the results so far through 2 games.
Yeah, Winnipeg's a deeper team. There's no doubt. PA is kind of on the back end of their cycle. They're the defending champs. They're the last team to win when there was WHL playoffs in 2019, and a few of those players are still here right now. So, they have an idea what it takes to have success. But as I mentioned kind of in that last comment here right now, Winnipeg's depth up front for me is the difference here right now, where they've been able to roll through their top 9 forwards who are legitimately 3 number 1 lines on any other team. But, it's 1, 2, 3 right now here through Winnipeg, or 1A, B, C, whichever way you want to put at it. And, that's been to their favor here right now. Now, there's a little bit of rumor that Ozzy Weisblatt could be an option back from San Jose here tonight. That murmur is starting to go around the city. I haven't talked to Mark Habscheid yet. We've got our pregame visit coming up at 5, and I would imagine he's not going to probably tell us anyway because we're in playoffs and might have to wait until warm-up whether 19 steps onto the ice. But if he's a go, that's going to give them a boost of adrenaline for sure. And they've got some good players here with PA, like Reese Vitale's had some great chances, Evan Herman, Landon Kosher, Sloan Stanek on the back end. Nolan Allen played 33 minutes in Game 1. Landon Kosher's a really good defenseman as well. So they've got some players here that can be game breakers for them, but Winnipeg's been able to, to have success here in the first 2, but these next 2 games aren't just a rubber stamp here yet. This is going to be a challenge for sure, and that adds to the excitement of this one coming up here this evening. Absolutely.
It's interesting, too, for the Ice. You talked about them being a 4-line team, and James Patrick mentioned how important that was to get everybody involved. And, naturally when you're talking, when we're talking about the team, we're talking about Savoy and Geeky and McLennan. The guy that I can't take my eyes off every time we watch the Ice is Zach Benson. And he was a 15-year-old last year playing in the bubble, and he opened a lot of eyes. And, the way that someone like James Patrick, who's been in the game for his entire life, played so long in the National Hockey League, speaks about this young man as a 16-year-old, tells you all you need to know. But, man, you'd never know that he's 16 other than how big he is out there. But, man, did he come to play. And you see a lot of very spread-out scoring as well from the first couple games, which I'm sure was another really good sign for the Ice that they got a lot of guys going at the most important time of the year.
Well, Benson's got a goal and 2 assists so far for 3 points through the first 6 periods. And, he, Carson Lambos, and Ben Zalotti are 3-point players so far to lead Winnipeg in that regard. So you're right. It's spread all the way through. And the neat part about it here is they've got, you allude to Zach Benson's a young 16-year-old. They've got him playing right now with Connor Geeky and Chase Wheatcroft because Matthew Savoy didn't play in Game 2. He's a game-time decision right now. We don't know if he'll be able to play or not. So they've upped a guy in that's 19 years old and brought in from Lethbridge for a reason to be elevated into the lineup, and he's done exactly that. And then it just kind of trickles down all the way through, whether it's the Jack Findlay line or the Cole Muir line, it's worked out well. So, so far so good for the team, but again, we'll kind of see what happens coming up here at 7, and I would expect a big bounce back as well from PA's goalie. We talked about Chaika leaving earlier on in Game 2, and he's the reason why the Raiders are here. He played 51 games during the regular season. it was back to the Artur Zerbe day. Remember that when he was playing 70 plus for the
For
Carolina
Murray's.
Hurricanes?
Yeah.
That Chike has done that. So I would expect that he'll be fired up for this one.
Well, speaking of goaltending, I mean, Daniel Hauser, what a season he's had. WHL East Division first All-Star team. He was a nominee for the Dale Wilson Memorial Trophy for the Goaltender of the Year from the East Division. A 1.5 goals against average and 925 save percentage. He's been an absolute rock for this club. Now, James Patrick will be the first one to tell you that, those numbers also speak to the way his team has played in front of him. That being said, Brian, I mean, tell us a little bit about what you've seen all season long as Daniel Hauser has really strengthened his grip on that number one job and has established himself as another star that maybe doesn't get enough attention because of how many goals his teammates are scoring at the other end of the rink.
You're bang on. He doesn't get that attention, but he's starting to right now. And I think that's what excites me for him because this is his draft year. Like we all talk about Connor Geekie and Matthew Savoy, and deservedly so, Mikey Milne. But to me right now, the thing that I tell everybody is Daniel Hauser is bigger than UC Saros. And we know what the Nashville Predators goalie has been able to do for them over the last number of years since taking over from Pekka Rinne down in Smashville. So I think Hauser, the way he has played this year and through the early parts of the playoffs right now, deserves that opportunity. Will he get it? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe he goes into somebody's camp as a free agent and is able to go that route. But I hope he gets drafted because he tied for the league lead in wins with 34 during the season. He had the best goals against average. He led the league in shutouts. So he's done his part, but he has had a good team play in front of him. But the thing for me is Hussey's made the saves when he's needed to. And he made a couple of really big stops in game one. Game two was a little bit more lopsided for Winnipeg, but in game one, he made a couple of timely saves, especially on a PA power play that hasn't scored as of yet. He was able to deny them on a 5-on-3. That was about 1:34, if memory serves me right. So he's been a big part of this, despite the fact Winnipeg has scored 8 goals as a team. Giving up only 3 right now has a lot to do with number 31.
Well, and you know what I mean. Speaking of timely saves, timely goals as well for the Ice, and when you go into a series like this where you've got the top team, number 1 playing number 8. I mean, I think if you're the 8 seed, if you're the underdog, you're hoping to go in and maybe surprise in game number 1. And the PA's credit, they hung in there. They got that goal to make it a 1-goal game early in the third period, and then boom, the Ice scored. I mean, not more than a minute later, I think, to get that lead, and that is exactly what you'd want to see. And listen, you take away a little bit more of the stress, which is a good thing, but also you can see that a team is able to bounce back at a key moment of a playoff game right out of the gate. Another great sign for Winnipeg as they will need to do a lot of that if they want to get their eventual goal of being WHL champs and playing the Memorial Cup.
I agree. And that's the ebbs and flows I think that we all love about the playoffs right now, whether it's watching the Stanley Cup playoffs or whether it's here in the Western League or the Moose getting ready for their run. That's what's so exciting. Yeah, it's 1 versus 8, but a PA win tonight, and all of a sudden this is a brand new series, right? With game 4, or as they would look at it, game 2 in their building, and then if necessary, we come back to the Ice Cave on Friday night for game 5. So I'll be honest, this clock is like going dead slow right now for me here today. We got to kind of fast forward this thing up.
Well, I'm glad we gave you something to occupy yourself for a few minutes while you get ready to talk to the coaches and get ready. Hey, I got to ask you about one guy that we never talk about, and I made a point of asking James about him because Nolan Orzek's a player that's been with this organization since he was barely 15 years old. He finally gets a chance to play in the playoffs. I'm looking at it. He was plus 62 this season. And listen, he's playing with Carson Lambos a good portion of the season when Lambos was in the lineup. And Lambos, a first-round pick in the Minnesota Wild, a player that we will be looking at in the National Hockey League at some point for sure. But from your perspective, Orzek, how much of a steadying veteran presence does he have on the club? And how important has he been, maybe while we're paying a little bit more attention to guys with some gaudier stats outside of that ridiculous plus-minus number I just mentioned?
The thing with me that I look at him, Huss, he's one of those guys that is like the lowest maintenance guy there is. Like, he just goes out and he does his job. He comes to the rink every day and he's got a smile on his face. Yeah, it's his last year of juniors. So he and Cole Muir and Jake and Smallwood are sucking every little minute out of the fun they're having right now, and rightfully so, because when they were in Cranbrook, they weren't good. So they've been able to go from here all the way up to the top and, enjoy 52, 53 win regular season, and then go into this playoff here right now with a lot of, as we call it, I guess, youthful enthusiasm, because they're only 21. They've got a long way to go in their hockey career. But for me, he's a pro already. And Smallwood and Muir are kind of the same idea for me. Is you look at so many of these young guys, and, we'll take it to the Moose or we'll take it to the Jets. When some of these players come in, sometimes they're not ready for the next level because they're a high draft pick or something like that. If you've got one of those three guys that's coming into your organization at the next level, they appreciate what they've been able to do. They appreciate what they've been able to learn. And they're serviceable guys that aren't expecting everybody to go gaga all over them. They just want to go out and play and help their teams. So, Nolan Orszag's been a big key of this. He was a healthy scratch in the last few games of the regular season just to make sure that his body was ready to go. Other than that, he played every other game this year and, didn't miss a beat, whether it was a dull night in Swift Current or Moose Jaw, or whether it was a big game in the Battle of Manitoba for Taylor McCaffrey Lawyers against Brandon. He kind of brought it every night. And he's a big piece of this team. And you're right. It's good of you to mention a guy like that doesn't get the headlines, because he was a big piece of this team that is a major reason why they are where they are.
One other guy I wanted to ask you, and Remo and I came out for that one of the games against the Oil Kings. It was, I believe, the first game that Jack Finley had played in Winnipeg for the Ice. And, of course, he was a big trade deadline acquisition. I didn't realize that he's basically the only guy on the team that's ever played a playoff game. I mean, Neal had one game for Tri-City in 2019. Other than that, you're talking about one player that had 15 games. I mean, give us the role and the importance of Finley, but at the same time, the fact that, every single other player for the most part on this team was getting their first taste of playoff action. And as we mentioned, passed the test quite well in the first two games at the Ice Cave.
Yeah, those were the only two guys that had seen dub playoffs back in 2019. So it was, and I talked to him a little bit about it coming in, and he almost said, it was so much fun, but I don't remember all the details because it was so long ago, right? It's a couple of years ago already. But the one thing about Jack, and as soon as you see him step onto the ice, is there's not many 6'6", 200 and whatever he is, probably, I think he's listed at 223 right now, where physically he's able to dominate a lot of these younger, smaller players, right? He's a man. He's ready to play pro already here. So a big get by the organization, obviously, to complement things down the middle. And he's a big reason why their penalty kill is perfect right now in the postseason. His face-off numbers are tremendous because he's able to go in and he's able just to outmuscle a lot of opposition players. And then he's able to go net front, and a lot of the defensemen can't move him out of the way. So when you're a man playing, and I don't mean this by any disrespect, but when you're a man playing with some boys, because they're younger and they're smaller players, he's been able to use his size to his advantage. And he's been a huge piece to this team for sure, and will be moving forward, because you know what the grind is like in the playoffs. All right, the body's started to wear down a little bit. That's why it's important to play as least number of games as you can in those first few rounds. And Jack's able to use his frame to his advantage for sure.
Well, and speaking of that, Brian, I mean, you mentioned the schedule. I mean, the travel got screwed up because of the weather. They're going to Game 3 tonight. Game 4 is tomorrow, and Game 5 potentially is back in Winnipeg at the Ice Cave if necessary on Friday night. The Winnipeg Ice have their sights set on far more than just a first-round victory. And as you mentioned, a big opportunity if they can get this win tonight to potentially give themselves some extra rest, some extra practice time, some extra preparation for round 2 and the rest of what we hope will be a long playoff run for the Ice tonight.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, right? Because, Edmonton's been able to win their first 2 games at home against Lethbridge. They're going into Game 3. Brandon's giving Red Deer a run, a huge win for the Wheat Kings in overtime in Game 2. So, that series is now going 5. And they've got to make their way back to Alberta. And we talked earlier on about the travel implications that they had to go through yesterday after their second game on Saturday. So all those little things do add up all the way through the playoffs. So, take advantage of the rest when you can. And then, if you can have a little bit of early success, be able to put those extra hours in the bank, because you're going to need them here over a long playoff run for sure. And we didn't even talk about Moose Jaw Saskatoon, who, it's a 2-0 advantage here for the Warriors right now. And I was talking to Les Lazarick, the good Winnipegger, coming into their series tonight, back into Saskatoon down the highway for us. And they've got a good one going too. So these playoffs are so much fun to be a part of right now. It's great to be back in it.
I'm glad you mentioned the Wheaties, because I was going to ask you about that and, some of the other things happening in and around. I mean, the one thing that we got robbed of earlier when playoffs were canceled was a playoff series between the Winnipeg Ice and the Brandon Wheat Kings. I mean, I personally don't think there could be anything that would be a bigger jolt of energy to junior hockey and this Battle of Manitoba that has been incredible in the regular season than a series between those two clubs. I mean, what needs to happen, Brian, for Winnipeg to play Brandon? Obviously, they need to win. Could that happen in the second round, or is that something that would happen? I guess it really depends on who else wins in the 1-8 format.
Yeah, it does, because Winnipeg has home ice and they're the number 1 seed all the way through. So obviously Brandon would need to upset Red Deer, because the Rebels were the number 3 team. And then, I guess the way it could happen is your 2-7 matchup between Edmonton and Lethbridge. Lethbridge needs to be eliminated. So it's possible. Like, it could happen in round 2.
It's up to the Wheat Kings essentially to win, because, I mean, if the Wheat Kings win as the 6th seed and Winnipeg and Edmonton win, that would set up Brandon, Winnipeg. And I'll tell you what, for whoever wins that series too, I mean, I think that would be great for both Manitoba teams at that point to maybe limit some of the travel and the amount of time y'all are spending on the bus.
Yeah, 2 hours down the highway. Now you got to avoid a lot of potholes, which makes it to about 2:15 or 2:20 or 2:30. But I think at the end of the day, like, how fantastic would that be? Like, the rivalry between those. You saw each other 10 times during the season. There was 2 in the preseason already. Could you imagine up to a possibility of 7 more games coming up in the playoffs? What's Ridley Gregg going to do in that best of 7 series? Like, he's back now. He played against Red Deer. Let's not count anything that's not done yet in this first round, but that would be something.
Well, listen, if you were a fan of junior hockey in Manitoba and you're pulling for the Ice, I think also let's see if everyone can get the Wheaties through to the next round and do that. A lot of people in chat asking about Savoy. You mentioned game time decision right now. I mean, we won't get into what his injury is, but maybe listen, he's going to be a top 10 draft pick for sure this summer. For folks that haven't seen him, fill the people that are asking about Matt Savoy, the season he's had as a member of the Winnipeg Ice, and what he's got his eyes set on along with his teammates coming to playoffs, assuming he gets back into the lineup soon.
Yeah, he's a game time decision right now, so we won't know until warm up if he's ready to go. But he did skate yesterday, and he skated this morning here inside the Art Hauser Center for pregame. So, at the end of the day, that's about the only update that I have for you here right now on him. But yeah, when he's 100%, he is an elite junior hockey player that isn't that far away from the NHL. Obviously, a 90-point campaign. The numbers speak for itself, and he's a special talent. He's a special kid, both on and off the ice, just like Connor Geekie is here. So I know the Ice are thrilled to have those guys here, and they're a big piece of this, along with Zach Benson and everybody else over the next couple of years here to be excited about for sure, that a lot of other teams wish they had.
Munzie, good luck to the Ice tonight. Thanks so much for taking the time. We cannot wait to see the team back at the Ice Cave, whether that is Friday for a Game 5 or whether that's for a Round 2 matchup. We'll be there, and we'll be hanging and following the rest of the way. All the best, and travel safely. Watch out for those potholes.
Absolutely. Enjoy your time down in the South. Another nice little gig you pulled off there, eh?
Not too bad. We're making it work. But I'll tell you what, as soon as I get back, I'll be down at that rink at the U of M looking forward to some playoff action for the Ice. Have a great one, and good luck tonight to the squad. All
right. Take care, Huss. Say hi to Remo.
You got it. There it is. Brian Munz, voice of the Winnipeg Ice, with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Hey, Mike McIntyre's coming up in just a minute. I will say this, and I mentioned this yesterday on the program. Man, I'm missing Culligan Water right now. I don't know whether it is, well, certainly tap water is pretty much undrinkable here, certainly as opposed to what we're used to in Winnipeg. And even the bottled water just does not cut the mustard, if you know what I mean. And maybe we've just been spoiled because our friends at Culligan, locally owned family business, have been serving Manitoba for over 65 years, do it better than anyone. And they've got it all: water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, and citywide water delivery services, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Whatever your water needs are for the home, the cottage, or the office, Culligan is there for you. You can pop down and see him at 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180, and online at drinkculligan.com. Hey, Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are ready for summer whenever it comes. And as we mentioned, they've expanded their hours right now to serve you better for the summer, 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. Of course, they had the big farm sale last week. Many people outside of the city might have a tough time getting in during the day. You can always phone in your orders to Manitoba Battery. Danny and the great staff will have it ready for you, quick and easy to pick up down at 1026 Logan Avenue. And in the meantime, when you're thinking about getting that boat back out, the golf cart that you use, maybe a hot rod you're working on, batteries for everything at the best prices in town at Manitoba Battery. Save money over Canadian Tire and Costco, and shop local at Manitoba Battery, 1026 Logan Avenue. And you can visit them online at manitobabattery.com. Hey, Royal Sports ready for the upcoming playoffs. Listen, it won't involve the Winnipeg Jets, but all sorts of other teams. If you're looking for some merch, maybe to jump on a wagon, they've got there for you. The wagon I'm on right now is the Raptors, to see if they could maybe stretch this one to Game 7. A great selection of Raptors merchandise as well, and of course the Blue Jays. Canada soccer gear coming in as well. I'll have to wear the shirt. I just picked up the We Can Canada World Cup 22 shirt before I left. Rock that at some point here in Vegas over the next few days here at Bar Canada at the D Hotel. But whatever you're looking for merchandise-wise, Royal Sports has it. And of course, we're also going to be getting outside and playing some of these games. So whether you're a soccer player, boots, balls, they've got it all. Softball, baseball, great bike selection, fitness, and more. It's all there at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And I'd suggest following on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and deals over with our friends at Royal Sports. All right, let's get to the Jets, who practiced earlier today, coming off a nice win to break the losing streak on Sunday against the Colorado Avalanche. And Mike McIntyre, along with his trusted friend. Which dog is this, Mike?
This is Piper. This is our new rescue. Hi, Piper. Say hello. Yeah, we got this sweet girl about almost a month ago now, and she, as you can tell, she still doesn't really have much concept of personal space. And she's a big sweetie. She's quite clingy, and she's also a bit of a show off. So when she saw the camera and heard the voices, she just came over, and she also doesn't recognize how large she is because she just sits on my lap here, and yeah.
It's a great visual, and very well behaved, I will say. We did see I believe you tweeted this out, the rivalry from Piper and
Bodie.
Yes, Bodie. There's some good action going on in the back seat, but probably tired or out and now just chilling here for a conversation about the Jets. Listen, I want to get to obviously these next 3 games, what we heard today from practice. But first off, that game on Saturday night. Talked to a number of friends. I was traveling that day. I did manage to watch the game in Vegas, but basically I got here and was able to watch the second and third period. And considering the way the road trip went, I was really concerned about this game because I did know that, the team was out, but the fans that were coming to these final 4 games of the season, I think we're expecting to see this team at least really show up and show that they care. Really, to quote Blake Wheeler, for the guys to go out and play with some self-respect and play for the fans. And they did exactly that. Somewhat frustrating from a lot of people to know where were some of those performances earlier in the season, but it is what it is, and we are where we are. What did you think of Sunday's game? What did you hear afterwards from the team? And, for a team that's already looking ahead to next year, what did you take away from it, Mike?
Yeah, there was some good signs for sure. And I think if anything, it just served up a reminder that, beneath the frustration and the disappointment and, you could go on and on describing this season, that there still is the makings of a pretty good hockey team. There's some good players, and when they put their minds to it, and when they focus on kind of what they need to do, they can be competitive with anybody. And I think that only adds, I guess, to the confusion over why this season has gone the way it is, because we've seen that Jets team not nearly enough this season. But the fact is that they are capable of it, and they showed it the other night. Now, I don't know how much stock we can put into what we saw out of the Avalanche. First of all, they were missing 3 key players, obviously, of their own. And, they've got first in the West locked up. I don't know how much the President's Trophy means to them. It's more of a curse than anything. It would be seem over the years. So
they're trying not to win. They're trying not to win the President's Trophy right now, I think, because of that when they won it before. Yeah. Hey, you know what? It is a little bit concerning for the Avalanche, though. I mean, I was watching one of the Denver shows online. I mean, this is their first 4-game losing streak of the year. They're going up against St. Louis tonight, which has been an absolute beast over the last little while. But that being said, this has happened on both sides of the way all year long. And regardless of who's on the other side of things for the Winnipeg Jets, it was about showing up and being a much better team than they were on that road trip where they got absolutely ran over by 4 of the top teams in the East.
Yeah, and I think one real positive takeaway from the Jets is how they were able to focus on trying to shut down a guy like Nathan MacKinnon, who had absolutely annihilated them in their previous 3 games. Nate MacKinnon had 9 points and 33 shots in the first 3 games. Like that is absolute domination from one of the best players in the game. And what did the Jets do to Nate MacKinnon the other day? Well, they smothered him like a blanket. He had 2 shots, no points. And, that's the kind of defensive commitment and awareness that was lacking on far too many nights this season. But again, it does illustrate that there's some potential with this group. That they obviously need some help, some tweaks, some additions. But and it's always dangerous to put a whole lot of stock in how a team plays once they're eliminated. But certainly the quick strike offense, like that was something, right, Huss? That was a trademark of the Jets for years. To quote Dennis Bayak, the Jets go bang, bang. Well, the other day they went bang, bang, bang pretty much. We haven't seen that a whole lot, especially over the last few months, but it reminded us that, hey, there's some pretty good goal scorers. This can be an elite offensive team, but I do like what they did in their own end. They made Connor Hellebuck's night not nearly as difficult as they have so many times this season. So, some good signs for sure. I guess take it with a grain of salt and a bit of caution. But yeah, I mean, for the Jets, these final 4 home games, no, they mean nothing in the grand scheme of the standings, but I do think that they're important for their fans. And I dare say the just north of 14,000 who were in the building the other day, which was actually a decent little crowd that they had. They've been trending down into the 13 and a halves. So to get more than 14, and then to play as well as they did against a really good team, I think that they probably sent most of their customers home satisfied. And at this stage of the game, Huss, that's about the best they can do. And so at least for one night, mission accomplished.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned, listen, Adam Lowry pulling the Alexei Zhamnov off the post. I mean, Blake Wheeler had some glorious opportunities. But, with that hard work and continuing to get that puck to the net, we saw the ugly ones actually go in to get things going in that third period.
Well, sure. And I mean, Dave Lowry has preached that over and over again. And it's the way Dave Lowry played the game. And it's the way that we've seen the Jets all too often get burned this year. How many times has the other team scored on the second and third attempt, or the shot that hits something, or a bunch of things? And for the Jets, I mean, look at their first 2 goals the other night. That's exactly how they scored, by getting traffic to the net, by being hard to defend. And so these are things that, if you're Dave Lowry, whether it's for these final 3 games or into next season, you can certainly queue up a whole bunch of video clips from the other night and show them to the team as a reminder of how to play the right way and why all those things that I've been preaching, if you're Dave Lowry, see, this is the payoff right here.
Hey, I want to get to today's practice, what we heard from Neal, Pionk, Cole Perfetti's situation in a second, but just quickly, Jansen Harkins. I was stunned when I heard Weber mention on Getting Ready that was Harkins' first assist since December 5th. And listen, I'm not sure this is as much an indictment of Hark as much as it is of the fact that the fourth line has been an insignificant part of this hockey team for a long time. But what do you think? I mean, we've seen Svechnikov play there before. He's available to go up. What do you think was behind Harkins getting that opportunity with Connor and Dubois, a spot where he was back in practice today with the two main offensive cogs so far this season for the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, it's interesting. Dave Lowry today, we were talking to him about Cole Perfetti, and he had a comment about Cole Perfetti and putting young players in a position to succeed. And he said and he used Perfetti as an example of how playing on the fourth line, and this is what Dave Lowry said, where you only get 5 or 6 minutes is not conductive to progress. And I thought to myself, but why does the fourth line only play 5 or 6? Like, isn't the idea, and if you look at successful teams around the league, they tend to play their fourth line a lot more than 5 or 6 minutes. So I don't know why. And that's an issue, and it was an issue with Paul Maurice, and it seems to be continuing to be an issue with Dave Lowry. Is it that they don't like the players they have in the fourth line roles, and so they don't play them as much? Or is it that the Jets are so top heavy when it comes to their offensive, talent and the guys they pay the big bucks to, that they ride their, top six maybe harder than other teams would? That being said, for Jansen Harkins, I mean, yeah, opportunity came knocking the other day, and I'm not sure why he was the guy, other than, I suppose, he was the next one up, kind of next man up on the rotation. I will say this, Jansen Harkins did get a couple games earlier in the season in that spot, Huss, and I thought Jansen acquitted himself quite well, and then he was kind of out of that spot, really through no fault of his own. So maybe this was Dave Lowry kind of paying him back, an IOU, if you will, for some earlier work. But you're right. It's not like Jansen Harkins was lighting it up in a bottom six role. But I saw a player the other day who recognized an opportunity. And I mean, one thing you can say this about Jansen Harkins, he maybe won't always put up the points, but the guy has a motor that usually is always on full. And, he's a guy who always looks like he's giving it 100% out there. And so we brought some energy and made the most of it. And, it looks like he'll get to stay there. We've seen so many guys play with Dubois and Connor this year, from Cole Perfetti, Morgan Barron had a look, even Adam Brooks, don't forget. Adam Brooks played there, I think, his first game with the Jets.
Yeah, that was the first game. We're trying to catch lightning in a bottle.
And Adam Brooks is still looking for his first point. He doesn't have a point with the Jets. So, there's been a lot of guys. Evgeny Svechnikov obviously has shown that he can play with those two. But I think what we're maybe learning, Huss, as this season goes on, is there's a lot of guys that can probably play with those two because they're such good players. And so, Jansen Harkins, he's going to get another look there tomorrow, and good for him for playing an elevated role and making the most of it.
We'll get to Pionk in a minute, but Cole Perfetti was out there today in a yellow jersey, and I believe we'll have a clip later on. Remis is going to grab it, but did speak afterwards. Fill us in on Perfetti's situation, because we were Remis and I at the beginning of the show were talking about where he goes from here, because he won't play before the end of the season for the Winnipeg Jets. He can't play for the Moose because he was with the Jets and couldn't be sent down to be a part of the Clear Day roster, which means that he'll have gone a really long time without playing. I would imagine if he was healthy, there could be the potential of playing at the World Championships where he played last year. But then there's also the World Juniors. And I would have never thought that the World Juniors was even a possibility for Perfetti. But the fact of the matter is, he's going to have, this might be a nice tune-up for him before he goes to a full NHL camp. What do we hear from Cole today, and what do you make of his situation over the course of the next number of months before we get to September?
By the way, that was Bodie now making his appearance. So
Oh, jeez.
now the whole canine family has been, and it looks like we have the makings of perhaps an MMA style fight about to get underway. So
Might have to move the camera.
yeah, exactly. That might be more entertaining than I could be. Yeah, good sign in that Cole Perfetti joined the main group. But I guess the bottom line, Huss, is he's kind of ramping up potentially for nothing. Like there's no immediate payoff or immediate reward. We know Cole Perfetti's not going to play these final 3 games. And unfortunately, a technicality that, as Dave Lowry put it today, a rule, that's supposed to be able to protect players from being sent down, kind of against their will, if you will, to the minors. A rule that's designed to protect players. In the case of Cole Perfetti, you could make the argument it's actually hurting the player. Cole Perfetti made it clear he wishes he could go play with the Moose. He's got a lot of friends there, and I can tell you the Moose wish Cole Perfetti could come play for them. And for a kid that just needs to play, it would be a perfect opportunity. But unfortunately, the rules are what they are, and so he's going to miss out. I didn't get the sense today that the World Championships are in the offing for Cole Perfetti. I guess never say never. We haven't obviously seen who's going to go. And I think some of that will depend on maybe what other NHL players turn down invites. I do expect we're going to see Pierre-Luc Dubois for Team Canada. But the World Juniors, Dave Lowry told me when we asked about Cole Perfetti, he said that is something that he believes would absolutely be an option because, as he said, we need Cole Perfetti to play some games. And yeah, you potentially run the risk of what if he goes to the World Juniors and gets hurt, and then it impacts, say, the start of next season. But Dave Lowry seemed to suggest that Cole Perfetti just playing meaningful hockey games should be the top priority right now over anything else. And so I do suspect that we may see Cole Perfetti at the World Juniors. He expressed some interest in that as well. So perhaps he doesn't have to wait until training camp in mid-September to kind of get going, and that he will be a factor. But yeah, the World Championships would be nice. I mean, just to go rub shoulders, obviously with some more experienced players. But I don't get the sense that that's something that's necessarily going to happen.
Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, is with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. The other person we heard from today was Neal Pionk, and it was quite interesting. I know you kind of went through what he had to say on Twitter. I mean, bottom line, he said that this was an embarrassing season for himself and the team, an important summer of self-reflection, and to come back with a chip on his shoulder. I mean, you were there. What did you get out of what Neal Pionk had to say, both about the team and a disappointing season for him after 2 great years coming over from the Rangers?
Well, good on Neal Pionk for not sugarcoating it, right? He called a spade, and he was pretty blunt and pretty candid in his assessment, starting with himself. And I think when we look, Huss, at some of the things that have gone wrong for the Jets, I think we would all agree that Neal Pionk's probably taken a bit of a step back from what we expected from him after a couple real nice seasons. His play at times has suffered. And it was interesting to hear him talk today, and Dave Lowry as well, about the concussion that he suffered back in December. And you'll recall that he also had that suspension after the Leafs game. And he seemed to suggest that has had an impact, both the injury and the suspension, perhaps in the way he's played. Maybe we haven't seen the same kind of aggression at times from Neal Pionk. I think lately, though, we're seeing some signs of that return to his game. And I point to the Colorado game the other night where I thought Neal Pionk had one of his better games in a long time. And, it came after he kind of got run from behind. And, he still today was sporting the big cut on his nose. It was still kind of leaking. His visor cut him. And, he talked about how that kind of gave him his edge back. And maybe he hasn't had that at times this year. So, good on Neal Pionk for kind of admitting that he needs to be a lot better. But he also said, I hope all my teammates are looking in the mirror. And, Huss, it continues a bit of a theme that we've heard lately from the likes of Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Paul Stastny. So the guys are saying the right things. That's good. I guess, though, at the end of the day, actions will speak louder than words. Let's hope that that everybody kind of takes these words to heart and comes back with that proverbial chip on the old shoulder and uses that next season to maybe improve their lot in life.
Yeah, the Pionk season's been a bit of a bit of a mystery in some ways. I mean, I didn't think he had a terrible start, and frankly, I think his entire team had a good start to the season. I mean, they were 9-3-3. They were right there with Edmonton battling for the top of the West, first place in the division, and we know where things went from there. Really dramatically at that point, and a lot of it goes back to that game December 5th against the Maple Leafs, where, of course, Neal Pionk made the hit, got suspended, and then also took that knee from Jason Spezza. How much of that do you think affected him? Did he touch on that at all, of that incident, of anything that he'd been dealing through? Because, he has been a workhorse. He's been playing a lot. It just has, a lot of times it seems like he wasn't the same guy that we'd seen for the last 2 years that earned that long-term contract.
No, exactly, Huss. And he did touch on that and admitted that suspension especially, he said it's almost like, not that he was playing scared, but he said that gets your attention. You know that the NHL is kind of watching you. You got to be a lot more careful out there. And so I think what we've seen is a much more hesitant, some might call it restrained Neal Pionk. And I'm not sure that's the best version of Neal Pionk. In fact, I'm certain that it's not the best version of Neal Pionk. And so, I think it's taken some time, and combined obviously with the injury that he suffered, he just wasn't himself for the last couple months. And again, not to pin it all on Neal Pionk. He's just one cog in the wheel, but he's a guy, as you say, plays big minutes, a big role on this team. And so he said, look, I've embarrassed myself. And this is not what I expect out of me. This is not what I expect out of my team. I need to be better, and I will be better. So, good on Neal Pionk, and I think we're going to hear some additional soul searching in the coming days. I know there's 3 games left, Huss, but the autopsy, if you will, is already well underway, and Neal Pionk brought the knives out today in a way.
Mike, listen, I think we all agree that there will be some sort of move involving one of the veteran defensemen to open up a spot for one of the younger players. Dylan Samberg, I thought, was great on Sunday.
Yes.
Not only looking like he belonged, but doing some of the things that we've missed at times. A ballsy shot block right in front of a heater in front of Connor Hellebuck that can only help his position going into next season. It was the opposite for Logan Stanley. Dude, that decision that he made to jump when Brendan Dillon, had his man. It was inconceivable that, he would decide to do that. And I got left thinking afterwards that, you recall last year, I thought the Logan Stanley not only showed that he was capable of playing in the league, but he was a guy that I think had, considering how much the Jets had put into him, had a bright future and would be protected. And that's exactly what happened. And sometimes this happens where guys sort of take a step back in their second year, but considering what is at stake right now, the other guys that are pushing in, that particular play, I was watching it here at the bar in Vegas going, that is the last thing that Logan Stanley can afford to do right now with not much else to play for, but to show that where he is at. What do you make of his game right now, the season overall, and maybe how he's potentially, despite how much he's played, the opportunity he's been given, that when they do the reflection and look back at this season, as well as the players at the Moose that have been pushing for, how much he's maybe hurt his chances to be a regular next year, even if some of the guys ahead of him right now aren't in the mix.
Well, significantly, and you're right, Huss. I thought that game the other day, if you just watched Dylan Samberg and Logan Stanley and knew nothing about the background, and then told that person who had just watched those two that they're essentially battling for one spot, it would be inconceivable that Dylan Samberg has played less than Logan Stanley. One guy looked calm, cool, collected, like he's done this his whole life. The other guy had all kinds of panic in his game, And just the reads, like you say, I mean, and it is hard to explain. I mean, one theory that I've heard, and perhaps there is some stock in this, is I do wonder if Logan Stanley has been coached up by Charlie Huddy and others to try and maybe be a little more aggressive at times, but he's making the wrong decisions. And I don't know how many times lately I've found myself saying out loud or even tweeting during a game, like, where's Logan Stanley going, or what's Logan Stanley doing? Because it seems to be a common thing. And it doesn't always result in a play that ends up with a puck in the back of the net. The other day it did. That was certainly the most glaring example. But I think if we cut up video from the last few weeks, we could probably find a dozen or so similar plays where you're just not sure what the read is. As someone in the press box said the other day, I think it might have been Scotty Billick, it's almost like the joystick, the controller got unplugged, and the player just veered to one direction, kind of a knee-jerk sort of reaction to having the controller go out. Because there was no reason. Brendan Dillon had the entire right side taken care of. Logan Stanley, you're the left side defenseman. That's your lane. Why are you abandoning your lane to go where there already is a teammate, and thus leaving JT Compher wide open to get the pass and score? Those are things you'd like to think would be out of his game at this point. Yes, he is still a young player, but for sure, I think when you look at the increased competition, those are very costly errors that are probably knocking Logan Stanley down a notch or two. It looks, by the way, Huss, it looks like Nate Schmidt will return to the lineup. He was back in a top six pairing today during line rushes, and Logan Stanley, not surprisingly, looked like the odd man out. Because essentially Dave Lowry, he sees, I think, what the rest of us see, and that is that Dylan Samberg has been a lot better. And as a result, he's probably left him in the depth chart.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've had this conversation for a couple weeks now. I mean, with the season essentially done, I was hoping to see both like Samberg absolutely in, but I would have assumed that Logan Stanley, maybe amongst any player, would have the most to gain from playing some significant minutes. And I think that performance on Sunday night maybe really set him back, and even the opportunity to do exactly that. 3 games left. We know, the majority of the veterans will be in, but who stands the most to gain, in your opinion, from these final 3 games? Certainly Dylan Samberg and Stanley would be at the top of my list. I mean, anyone else up front and forward-wise that you think could potentially help their case going into the summer with some strong play in these final 3?
How about that Kyle Connor kid? He looks like there's some potential there, for that guy. I joke, but he's 5 goals away from 50. He could have had number 46 the other day. Jansen Harkins gave him a great feed, and he shot, pretty much an empty net that he shot wide. How much do you think the focus, Huss, in these last 3 games will be get Kyle Connor the puck? Like, I suspect there's going to be a notable effort to try and somehow get him 5 goals, whether that's, all 5 on a goaltender, or certainly if there's empty net situations, you can bet all eyes will be on trying to get Kyle Connor the puck. It's too bad he lost those 3 games due to COVID after testing positive in Buffalo the day before the rules changed, where he wouldn't have had to test, because, if he had 6 games to get 5 goals as opposed to 3 games, I certainly would like his chances. That being said, we know Kyle Connor can score in bunches. I would not put it past him. As for those guys, unlike Connor, who aren't established, certainly someone like Morgan Barron, again, he's a guy who, if he can have a nice showing, I'm not even sure what his spot is in the lineup here, Huss. It looked like today him and Zach Sanford were kind of rotating on a line. So does Morgan Barron even stay in the lineup tomorrow, or does Zach Sanford come back in for him? I mean, Adam Brooks would be another guy, but I think we've now seen Adam Brooks. He hasn't had a point yet. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. The dogs are hitting the computer. It is one heck of a fight going on. Adam Brooks, that ship may have already sailed here in Winnipeg for Adam Brooks, but certainly the young players, and I think for the veterans, you're just looking for them to lead by example, right? And we saw some good signs the other day. And obviously for these last 3 games, you'll want to still see that effort from the veterans and not just them mailing it in, going through the motions. And so certainly the homestand got off to a good start the other day, and we'll see if that can continue.
Well, tomorrow it is the Philadelphia Flyers. Ironically, I mean, if you were putting up a list of the most disappointing teams in the National Hockey League this year, I mean, we focus a lot on Winnipeg. They'd be in the conversation, but the dumpster fire of a season that has happened in Philly is really something to behold. So it'll be an interesting game. Again, of course, 3 games left. It'll finish up on Sunday. But, Mike, before we go, we're going to be having Ken Boehlke from Sinbin.Vegas coming on in about 10 minutes on the program to get ready for this game tonight between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars. It is incredible the way this has gone. And, I mean, Sunday night after the Jets game, the way the Golden Knights dropped that extra point, giving up the tying goal with 0.4 seconds left was quite a spectacle to watch here with a lot of Golden Knights fans watching in the bar. But, man, the Robin Lehner saga continues. I mean, listen, for as aggressive as that team has been trying to do everything to win, it is incredible that we're sitting here talking about a team that could be bounced by the Dallas Stars tonight and not even getting an invite to the postseason.
The Vegas Golden Knights, they put the fun in dysfunction, don't they, Huss? They are something else. And you're right. I mean, the Evgeny Dadonov situation. I mean, there are so many examples this year of just things that team has done that the rest of the league, put it this way, there will not be a lot of tears shed by the other 31 teams around the league if the Golden Knights come up short. And I don't know entirely what that's born out of. I suspect part of it, Huss, is that, they enjoyed instant success. Their fan base did. And I think the rest of the league and fans around the league, they just want the Golden Knights to experience a little bit of what every other fan base has gone through, in some cases for decades, and that they really haven't had their share of adversity or disappointment. That being said, how good did that feel for the Sharks? That was like the Sharks Stanley Cup the other night, because as we know, the Sharks hate the Golden Knights. There's a real rivalry there. And so for them to potentially, play a big role in putting the nail in the proverbial coffin, that was quite the turn of events. And yeah, I know what game I'll be watching tonight. That is as juicy as it gets in Vegas, between Vegas and Dallas, in Dallas tonight. It should be a good one.
Well, yeah, busy slate of games in the National Hockey League. And then, of course, coming up next week, it is playoff time. We'll find it out. Mike, thanks so much for the time. You can get back into the octagon and officiate the battle between the 2 dogs. Thanks very much for doing this, and we'll look forward to catching up next week and get your thoughts on the first-round matchup. It's going to be great.
Yeah, right now my dogs are thinking that I'm a lot like NHL officials. I'm not calling anything. I'm missing everything that's happening. So I better get the whistle out. Take care.
All right, thanks, pal. And again, we will talk a little more about this Vegas-Dallas game tonight coming up in just a sec with Ken Boehlke from Sinbin.Vegas. Just before we do that, did do picks. We always do golf picks on the Lock Shop on Tuesday. Mexico Open, very slight field for our Breezy Bend Golf Report. John Rahm, a heavy favorite. You can check the Lock Shop for that, of course. But when we talk golf on Winnipeg Sports Talk, we do it for our friends at Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. The season allegedly will begin very soon, and it's going to be a great year over at Breezy. If you were thinking about a home for you and your family for years for your golfing future with a great junior program, awesome women's programs and women's nights, and amazing men's programs, golf course, clubhouse, and social events, Breezy Bend's the place for you. Give Corey Johnson a call at the golf course to find out more on what is available. And, of course, you can find out more online at breezybend.ca. Our friends at Aikens Lake are ready for their busiest summer ever. And as I mentioned last week, still looking for a few university students to spend their summers in paradise working with an incredible group of people over at Aikens Lake. If you are a university student that's thinking about what you want to do in the summer, whether you have fishing experience for guiding or working dock hands, laboring, incredible opportunities. Trust me, it is heaven on earth. Find out more at aikenslake.com, or you can hit Pitt Turan up on Twitter at Aikens Lake. We talked Raptors earlier today. My guy Trevor Knott was at the game 4 in Toronto. Game 6 is happening, and I know he's fired up. But right now, a lot of drivers are fired up, maybe looking to get that tank we talked about to take care of the potholes that we're dealing with right now in Winnipeg. If you're thinking about a new vehicle, whether it be electric or traditional, Knott is the place to go. Why not get into the car of your dreams at an incredible price with the help of the Knott team? Pop down and see him at Waverly and McGilvery, or you can check him out online at knott.ca. And we mentioned yesterday we were fired up to win the best radio station / podcast from the Winnipeg Nightlife Awards. Big congrats to our friends at Little Brown Jug, who, not surprisingly, won Winnipeg's favorite local beer. If you haven't tried the 1919 or the rest of the incredible Little Brown Jug offerings, what are you waiting for? Pick it up at your local beer store. Try a 19 at fine bars and restaurants throughout the city. Or better yet, get on down to the brew house and tap room on William Avenue, where all the magic happens, and pick it up yourself. The Little Brown Jug on William Avenue. Oh, they also do deliver Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. You can check it out online at littlebrownjug.ca. All right, we will get to a few of those comments from Cole Perfetti as well as Neal Pionk before the end of the program. But as we mentioned, I'm here in Vegas. There is a lot of angst amongst the Vegas Golden Knights fan base, especially after what happened on Sunday. And it could be their last stand tonight, and to get ready for the game of the night in the National Hockey League between the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. We welcome in Ken Boehlke from Sinbin.Vegas. Ken, what's going on? Great to have you on the program.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Well, what's up right now is I'm hanging out at the D Hotel all week. We did the lock shop earlier. They got a great setup here, Bar Canada. A lot of hockey fans kind of flock here knowing that they can get some Canadian beer and watch the games. And I was here with my jaw on the floor on Sunday night. Shortly after arriving, saw the Jets Avs stuck around for that night's game. And we heard Thomas Hertel say our entire focus is spoiling the party for the Vegas Golden Knights. And the way they did it was, about as heartbreaking as I can imagine if you're on the Vegas side of things. What did you make of the collapse there in the final second of the game and the lost single point that puts them on the brink of elimination going into this evening?
In many ways, it sums up the Golden Knights season, that it seemed like it was all going to go fine, and then basically out of nowhere, it just didn't. And it's dropped coverage, inability to hit empty nets, not any good in the power play in the overtime, not able to score in shootout, not able to clear the puck when it's on your stick with 5 seconds left in regulation. Like, it's just been a comedy of errors in many ways this season, and it hasn't all been their doing. Obviously the injuries have a lot to do with it, but it's been a very rough season, and it's not over yet. They still have a chance, but it's a tall hill to climb from here.
Now, the Knights have had their fair share of adversity, as so many teams have had when it comes to injuries and COVID, whatnot. However, this Robin Lehner saga, especially considering the fact that they literally traded the Vezina Trophy winner in Marc-Andre Fleury, the most popular player arguably in the history of the franchise, to make room for Lehner to be their guy. There are probably some people watching or listening that weren't really familiar with what had happened last week. Fill us in on these reports that he was done for the season. He was getting surgery. Logan Thompson's out there with an e-bug before the game against the Sharks, the emergency backup goalie, and then all of a sudden Lehner's there and will back up for the game. What the heck is going on?
So if you go all the way back to like somewhere in mid-February or so, well before the deadline, the first report that had come out was basically that it was Frank Saravalli that said that he had a shoulder problem and that, it was needing surgery eventually, and he was going to maybe try and gut it out, or maybe he was going to, not do that and take the surgery. Well, he kind of refuted that. Lehner refuted that pretty quickly. Then time went on. He came back. He then went out again. He came back in. It seemed like he was healthy. And then there were these reports on, it would have been Saturday, I guess it would have been, or maybe Friday, either Friday or Saturday, that both ESPN and The Athletic reported that he was out for the season, getting season-ending surgery. And then that day, DeBoer said, not that I'm aware of, haven't heard of that myself. I expect him to be on the ice tomorrow for practice and at the game on Sunday. Then he wasn't on the ice the next day at practice, and they put out a statement saying that he's not there, first time in the history of the organization, and I would argue in probably many organizations, that they announced a quote-unquote maintenance day on an off-day skate. I've never seen that before in any team. I don't know. That's wild. DeBoer would not take questions that day, only saying the statement speaks for itself, and the statement just said, he's not here today. Then the following day, so the day of the game, that was Sunday morning, it was, like you said, emergency backup goalie and Logan Thompson on the ice. DeBoer says Leonard's going to back up. I asked the question, is that health related or performance related that Leonard is no longer the starter, that he's now the backup? He said it's performance related. The following day, he has season-ending shoulder surgery, and the team announces it. So it has been an absolute mess. And then today, DeBoer was asked about it in Dallas, and he said something along the lines of, the statement speaks for itself. I'm talking about the guys that are here.
You do wonder if they could do it all over again. Maybe they handle things a little differently, because it is incredible, Ken, with the aggressive moves that they've made, getting Jack Eichel in. I mean, it's been one after another one. The fact that they went from Lehner and Fleury, arguably the best tandem of goaltenders in the league, to playing for their playoff lives tonight with a guy that was basically penciled in to play heavy minutes in the American Hockey League is it's stunning, and it makes it that much more of a very tenuous situation for a team that is clinging to very faint playoff hope.
Yeah, I wonder if they could go back in time where they find the mistake to have been. Was it buying Leonard in the first place from Chicago? Was it inserting him as the starter in the bubble and basically taking the job from Fleury during the pandemic? Was it re-signing Leonard? Was it not moving Fleury last offseason? Was it moving him this offseason? Was it hiring DeBoer in the first place because he's kind of the one that it seems like wanted to push Leonard out? It's like, I don't necessarily know where they would argue that they went wrong. Or honestly, at this point with this team, they don't even admit that they did go wrong. So I don't know.
That being said, I mean, Bill Foley had that incredible success. I mean, he's been very successful in many other businesses. The success they had was unprecedented as an expansion team in the first year. He's many things. He's aggressive. He's rich. Patient does not seem to be something that you would describe Bill Foley. If they lose this game tonight and they don't make the playoffs, what is next for the Vegas Golden Knights? I mean, we're here in Winnipeg talking about the most significant offseason in 11 years, but the Winnipeg Jets have been a team that have been really sort of stay the course. They haven't made massive moves. Vegas has, and now they're going to have their greatest disappointment in franchise history if things don't go their way. I mean, what are you expecting this offseason if things end as we expect them with the Vegas Golden Knights on the outside looking in?
I think there's multiple ways they can go. I don't think I have a great feel for which one they're going to go down, solely because we've never been here before. We've never been anywhere close to here before. So usually you can kind of rely on precedent of they've done this in the past or this, whatever. In this particular instance, there's really no precedent of them missing the playoffs and them having 500-man games lost and, all of what has happened. But I think there's two different ways that would make sense. There's one, which is doing absolutely nothing, which I think can actually make sense in some ways, in that you can say, look, if we weren't this injured, we're not missing out on the playoffs. We're in the mix and we've got a Stanley Cup contending team. Or you can say, well, there were a lot of warts on this team and you're getting older and you are in a window that is closing awfully quickly. I could see the coach going. I could see the GM going. I could see the president of hockey operations going. I could see any of them or all of them. It really could be an explosive offseason, or it could be a sleeper. I could see it going either way.
Ken, can't have you on without talking about two of the most important players on the Vegas Golden Knights. Fill us in on Jack Eichel's half season since returning for Vegas, and certainly a lot of people that know Mark Stone well from here in Winnipeg. Where is he at right now? Because listen, we've watched Mark Stone for a long time, and you always know you're going to get full effort from him, but it just does not seem like Mark Stone is the same dominant player at both ends that he's been in the past little while, and we know he's been dealing with injuries throughout this campaign.
I'll start with Eichel. So when he first came in, there was definitely a little bit of an adjustment period getting back on the ice after the neck surgery. coming in with a new system, a new team. It wasn't exactly clean right away, but the points were there. The goals were there at different times. The points have been there for a majority of this season. He's kind of been more up and down than we expected. There are some nights where he's out there and he's dominating, and then there are other nights where he kind of just fits in. And like this last game is a great example. He had a 9% goals for percentage in that game, or expected goals for. I don't even know how that's possible in a game where the Golden Knights won the goals for expected goals for battle. Like, I don't even know how that's possible, but it happened. You know, he's had some games where he's good, some games that he's not. And so the points haven't been there in the past few games. He didn't get a point against the Sharks. He didn't get a point against the Devils. He didn't get a point against Washington. So there have been some issues there, but in the end, he's been pretty darn good, and he's close to what he should be. And are we really judging the guy this quickly after he comes off the neck surgery? As far as Stone, he has not been very good. Since he's come back, he just doesn't look like the Mark Stone that we're used to. When the puck's around him, it's all pretty good and well, but getting to the puck, making plays off of the puck like he usually does, being in the positions to make the plays, it just doesn't seem to be there. I would argue there's no doubt that the back is still a huge issue with what's going on with him. He has talked about his wind being an issue as well. He misses the empty net. I don't know if there's a confidence issue going on and what's there as well. Like, it just hasn't been the same guy. And when you plug that guy in and expect him to be Mark Stone and don't get it, it's awfully difficult to continue winning games, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, Ken Boehlke of Sinbin.Vegas getting us ready for this huge game tonight. Vegas facing elimination with a regulation loss to the Dallas Stars tonight, and Dallas can clinch their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Back to Leonard for a second just before we go. Considering the way that this has all gone down and the way that's ended and the bizarre nature of what we've heard from the coach, and is he a Vegas Golden Knight next season? Can they come back with him as the number one guy and put that sort of trust in him that they had in him at the beginning of this season when they got rid of Fleury?
So as I mentioned earlier, we don't have precedent on what happens when they get knocked out of the playoffs. We actually do have precedent on what happens when there's a picture tweeted out with a sword in the back of one of the players and the name of the coach on it. We actually have that. And actually, the crazy thing is that relationship continued after that for an entire season. And the guy with the sword in his back won the Vezina with the guy's name with the sword on there behind the bench. So I do think it is possible, but I think the most likely scenario would be one or the other probably has to go, whether that be DeBoer or Leonard. That's a decision that someone's going to have to make, be it Foley, the front office that's currently in place. If they replace the front office and go a different direction, the new front office would have to make that decision. Which one are you better in? Are you better with this coach or are you better with this goalie? It's not going to be an easy decision because, oh, look at that picture. What a beaut that is.
That's an all-timer. All-time social media moment, thanks to Alan Walsh, the representative.
And Twitter, and actually, Leonard just reactivated his Twitter. He deleted his Twitter a little while back, and he just reactivated it today. So maybe we get a new one in the next couple of days.
I think I might have to turn notifications on for
yeah, they're on. Let's go.
Great. Ken, great stuff. Fill people in on where they can find out more about the Vegas Golden Knights and what you got going over at the Sinbin.
Now, the website's Sinbin.Vegas, as you could probably tell from all of, it says it a few times behind me. Sinbin.Vegas is Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then we do shows all the time. Yeah, that Twitter space went on for 3 hours last night, so that was a winner. So,
well, hey, you know what? Just on the way out, because, I've been here since Sunday night. I sort of was around a number of Vegas Golden Knight fans when it happened on Sunday. What are you hearing? Most people in other markets will say, the Golden Knights fans are spoiled, man. They've been so good in such a short period of time. That being said, they've been served. The expectations are high. What are you hearing from Vegas fans right now on the brink of elimination?
They're frustrated. There's no doubt about it. And they should be frustrated. This is a cup window that they're in, and the cup window is not going to last that long. And I think everybody's pretty well aware that if this team doesn't make the playoffs, they missed out on an opportunity to play $92 million in salary into this playoffs. And they're not going to get to do that next year, or at least it's probably unlikely. So there's definitely a level of frustration. The expectations remain very high. They're going to be expected to win the Stanley Cup next season. And if they don't do it, it's just going to get hotter for everybody involved. So it's Are the Golden Knights fans spoiled? Of course the Golden Knights fans are spoiled. However, they do not have a cup. They have a cup final, but they do not have a cup. So to sit here and say like they shouldn't have these types of expectations, they already got what they deserve. No, I disagree. Like, until you get that cup, you do not want these first 5, 6, however long it lasts years of the franchise to ended. We were in a cup window and it didn't happen. Can't have that.
One other thing I have to mention. I mean, of course, being a Winnipeg show, we know there's tons of, the Manitoba Mafia down there, both in the front office, the media, on the team. But I have to ask you about Nolan Patrick. I mean, listen, a lot of people's eyes sort of went up and rolled when we saw the number of guys that were put on LTIR to get Mark Stone activated. But Patrick was one of them. And what's unique about Patrick is that how he's had so many injuries and so many concussion problems throughout his career so far, very young career. What do we know about his status right now? How concerned are they about his future right now as a National Hockey Leaguer?
I wish I had a good answer to that, but they really do not want to talk about it. And I think that that's probably the right decision when you have 6 guys on LTIR that are saving you from being over the cap. It's going to be not to your benefit to kind of give daily updates on where they're at, because if any of them can come back, they have to activate them and trade somebody to a team that can't make a trade. So it's awfully tricky that they're in. He's out for the season. I think that's abundantly clear. There's no way he's coming back with the next 3 games and it's 4 days from now. So that's not going to happen. It was a very tumultuous season again. He wasn't all that good when he was on the ice. There were injuries multiple different times. There was a concussion. It's a concerning place to be. And I don't know what his future is with the Golden Knights, because he's going to have to get, paid yet again. I think he's an RFA this coming summer, and I'm just not sure they're going to have the money to do it. So it wouldn't shock me if he's not a Golden Knight moving forward.
Ken, thanks so much for doing this. I know you're going to have a busy night, and win or lose, you'll be talking to Vegas Golden Knights fans about what's to come next.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this, my friend. Really appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. There it is. Ken Boehlke from Sinbin.Vegas. Tonight, it's the Knights and the Stars. Dallas can clinch their playoff spot with a win in regulation and eliminate the Golden Knights. All right, we are going to get back to the Jets. We've got the Neal Pionk audio, and we'll also hear a little bit from Cole Perfetti coming up in just a second. Before we do that, listen, I cannot wait for Blue Bomber season. We are, I believe, less than a month away. I was seeing 27 days, something like that, from getting a little bit of preseason action for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the rest of the Canadian Football League. Great Grey Cup tour continuing. Big events at Princess Auto on the weekend, and Princess Auto ready to support both the Bombers and the Gold Eyes in their new seasons, including the Princess Auto pregame tailgate, which has been such a great part of Bomber games over the last few years. Princess Auto, of course, also the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Hit them up at one of 2 Winnipeg locations, or you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Hey, huge slate of games tonight in the National Hockey League, and you got to get to a place that has NHL center ice to watch all the games, including that Vegas-Dallas game this evening with the Jets not on the slate. Where better to do that than Boston Pizza? And while you're there, you can enjoy those gourmet pizzas, Boston's wings, and some ice-cold schooners. And if you're staying home, check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. Now, we made it through a snow blizzard a couple weekends ago. Got more snow and a freaking monsoon on the weekend, but spring is here. That means trips to the Nick and Nicky DQ for blizzards, and while you're there, you can try one of the 6 incredible new stack burgers as well. Nick and Nicky have been with us since day 1 of Winnipeg Sports Talk. We're always appreciative of that support they showed in us before we even did a single show, and you can support them by popping by the DQ in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, or DQ St. Anne's, and you can also follow them on Instagram at DQ Manitoba, and hit them up on Instagram to get a custom-made cake ready for you to go for a quick and easy pickup at any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. All right, let's hear first up, we will get to our Coolbet lines, and I've got the lines right here, ready to go, old school, on the paper from the book. But we spent a lot of time talking today about both Neal Pionk and Cole Perfetti. Let's hear from both of them. But I think the quote that we wanted to hear first was from Neal Pionk, who, as we discussed with Mike McIntyre, spoke about the embarrassing nature of this season and the self-reflection needed by the entire organization, but especially the guys in the room going into the summer. Here's number 4.
Yeah, disappointing. I mean, underachieving, and I don't know if it was one specific area, it was almost every area. And it starts by looking in the mirror too. So I look at myself and look at my game as underachieving and disappointing, like I just said. So I think if everyone goes into the summer with that mindset, a little self-evaluation, looking in the mirror and bring a better attitude and a better mindset to training camp next year, we'll start off on a better foot.
We saw a team like Calgary last year that probably was saying a lot of the same things, underachieve, and then they didn't blow it up. They came back largely intact, and look where they are now. So would you believe that the Calgary model could maybe apply to the Jets here?
I believe so, because we have a heck of a roster. We have world-class players. Come in with a different mindset, better attitude, and like I said, get started off on the right foot, because you lose the first 3 games in the year, it puts you in the hole right away, and then you're kind of chasing the year the rest of the time. You lose your confidence right away after the start too. So we get off to a good start next year. I think we can go pretty far.
When you say different mindset, do you think this team came into it thinking it would be easier than?
No, I don't. No, I don't think so. When I say different mindset, what I mean is, like, we have to have a chip on our shoulder in a sense, because I mean, let's be honest, it was kind of embarrassing what we did this year. Like, we had a really good roster and totally underachieved. So if we come into the training camp next year with essentially a chip on our shoulder, to not go through what we went through this year, I think we'll be best off.
Haven't heard anyone call it embarrassing until now.
Well,
you guys feel that
like
way?
I said, when I look in the mirror, like, I'm embarrassed. You know, like, I didn't think I played as best as I could all year. So that's where it starts for me. And I think if everyone goes in the summer and does that little self-evaluation, and we all come back, it's going to be a lot better.
The average fan might hear that and say, "Well, why didn't that happen halfway through the
Right.
year?" Right? Or
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of things going on during the year that makes it hard to wipe the slate clean. But I think you can do that in the summer and kind of mentally reset. 3-4 months off and not playing any games, and then come back next year and fully recharged.
All right, so there's Neal Pionk, the comments that we heard earlier. Let's get Remis back in here. I mean, that was, listen, we've spoke about what Nikolai Ehlers had to say, Paul Stastny, Kyle Connor. That was about as straight shooting as we've heard from any member of the Winnipeg Jets, and there's been quite a bit of that lately. I appreciated the lines of questionings from Freezer and the other guys that were there asking about it, and I also appreciate the frank honesty from Neal Pionk calling it the way it is this year.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really heard that from any player. The term embarrassing, and some people in chat said, "How can we take this seriously?" Well, I took Pierre-Luc Dubois seriously last year when he said he wasn't injured at that and he had to be better, and he was better this year. Josh Morrissey as well. Neal Pionk said, it starts with me. I need to be better. And we went over his stats that he's having a down year, and we talked maybe it's injuries. He did admit earlier in this conversation that he is dealing with something. He had the concussion earlier, but as far as pulling a Calgary, I mean, that's a tough task. Go from out of the playoffs to first place in the division. I mean, they're pulling it off, although that division not as much of a grinder as the central division. But I think that's, you want to hear that kind of honesty. You don't want to hear the excuses, and I think it's refreshing to hear that from Neal Pionk, who we haven't really heard from. I can't remember the last time hearing him speak to the media, but he sounded like a guy who means business, Hassan, who's committed to coming back and having a different path next season.
Well, yeah, and I mean, listen, I get the question, like, how can we take it seriously? I mean, I take it seriously because he's damn right. I mean, he absolutely nailed it. I mean, I think everyone agrees that, what Neal Pionk said is true. I mean, there was so much potential for this club. They should be a lot better than they were. And, I mean, there is somewhat of an embarrassing nature about the way the team played at times, some of the losses and the lack of life in the club, and what was there and what wasn't there. That being said, actions speak louder than words. I mean, I appreciate the honesty and the frankness from some of the players, and now it's, what are you going to do about it? As far as the Calgary mode, I mean, Mike's question of bringing it back, listen, I think, in his situation, he's not going to say, well, if you take out these two guys, we'd be a lot better. I mean, he's not going to say that, but it's pretty clear that there are some things that need to change. They're not just running it back with the same group and expecting completely different results. But I think we'd all agree that if they did, not that that is going to happen, you would still expect a better season that they had this year based on the players that they, that they've got in the lineup. But sorry, go ahead.
So I was just going to add, I mean, as far as Calgary goes, you talk about the Jets needing significant changes. Well, Calgary, I mean, a lot of the roster was the same in terms of Gaudreau, Tkachuk, Lindholm. However, I mean, they got rid of their captain in Mark Giordano, and they signed Blake Coleman. They brought in Toffoli. That was in the season, and they moved Sean Monahan, who'd been a veteran there, down to the bottom of the lineup. So Calgary definitely made some changes with the roster. You could
Daryl Sutter flex. Daryl Sutter went in. He figured out what he had to do, and then he went in and did it. And listen, Zadorov came in and played very well. Good Branson, came in. I don't know. They were, when we looked at their blue line going into this season, it really didn't seem like a strength, especially compared to the guy that they lost in Giordano in the expansion draft. But they have it. Although that would be such a tough sell to come back here in Winnipeg. And as we've seen from more and more reports coming out, we mentioned about Elliot Friedman's 32 Thoughts yesterday, which I know people have checked out. There is going to be changes with this Winnipeg Jets team. There has to be. They could be very significant. Maybe they won't be as much as a lot of people are hoping for, but I don't think we're going to be talking about this same group for the most part once we drop the puck on 2022.
Well, okay. Well, let's think of the Jets' version of quote unquote pulling a Calgary. Get rid of they literally got rid of him, Giordano. They let him go for free. Your veteran, high priced player. Pick who you think that's going to be. Bring in a new experienced coach with Stanley Cup pedigree and Daryl Sutter. And I remember laughing that they hired Daryl Sutter, and I'm eating my words. And I remember even laughing at the Trouba trade, saying, "Oh, this isn't a trade." And I think that trade actually has worked out pretty well for both teams there. And then they signed a Blake Coleman. They bring in a forward who's also won Stanley Cup with Tampa, but can play in your middle six and contribute offensively. So if the Jets take a playbook from there, maybe there are a couple moves that you can make, but maybe step one would be bringing in the coaching staff and changing the mindset of this team and how they play. Craig Button talked about earlier, playing in the defensive zone. So, and I don't know which is the bigger issue, is that the giving up the goals or scoring, but both of them have been problems with the team this season.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Now, Cole Perfetti was the other member of the Winnipeg Jets. We hadn't heard from him in a long time because he's been injured for so long. He was back on the ice today in a non-contact jersey. He won't play for the remainder of the season, but he did get to the podium, was asked a few questions. Here's Perfetti first up on how he's feeling right now.
It's feeling much better now. Obviously getting back on the ice is huge for not only the progression, but, for my mental state. Like, being 8 weeks off the ice or whatever it was pretty hard. It felt like it was, 8 months. It felt like a long time. Just so getting back on the ice, being with the guys now today, being the first day with the team, it was a lot of fun just being back out there and, doing what you love. For the injury, it was just, an older thing that kind of reoccurred while rehabbing my shoulder. That was the original thing, the shoulder going out against Seattle there. And then just an older thing that popped up and kind of was worse than we thought. So, yeah.
How's your wind? How's your legs?
Yeah, pretty tiring. Skating out there today, like, trying to get back. I've been doing as much as I can in the gym, like, cardio-wise, but there's nothing like skating. Nothing emulates it like that. So it was it's been tough. The last couple of days I've been exhausted. The lungs are hurting a little bit, but that was to be expected. It'll take a couple of days and a couple of weeks maybe, and then should be back to normal, but it's been tough.
All right, so there's Cole Perfetti talking about how he's feeling right now, expanding a little bit on the injury. I think we all realized it was a shoulder injury when he got hit by Jamie Alexiak in that game in Winnipeg against the Seattle Kraken, I believe in mid-January. Been a long time since he's been on the ice with his teammates right now, and terrible time at any point, but especially when you're just getting your feet wet, sort of establishing yourself as a guy that can play regular minutes in the National Hockey League. Perfetti also talked about getting back on the ice and what he's kind of ramping up for right now with the season being over at the end of the week.
It's I'm in a tough spot when it comes to that. Like, obviously, missed the deadline to go to the Moose, which is it's tough. They have a great team. They're going to go on a long run, so it would have been amazing to go there and join that team for that run. But obviously that didn't work out, and there's only 3 games left in the season, and I'm not going to be able to make it back in time for that. So it's going to be tough. But I think my mind right now is to get as healthy as I can as fast as possible for the summer. This is going to be a big summer for me. Off the ice, on the ice, I'm gonna have to do. It's 4 months where I can get stronger, get faster, do what I need to do to ensure when I come back next September that I'm in the best shape and my health is in the best spot. So there isn't a certain thing that I have my mind on yet, but it's kind of just the whole summer in general and just getting better every day.
All right, so there's a little bit more from Cole Perfetti on what he's ramping up for, and I mean certainly the hopes that a year from right now, he'll have had a full season in the National Hockey League. He'll have stayed healthy. He'll have been productive. He'll be getting ready for his first taste of NHL playoff action. As he mentioned, disappointed that, due to the rules, unable to play for the Manitoba Moose coming up in the Calder Cup playoffs. He was asked, though, about is there a possibility of playing in the World Juniors, as we've been discussing all day. This tournament has been moved to the middle of August right now and could potentially be a nice primer for NHL training camp. Here's Cole Perfetti on the potential of playing for Team Canada again in the World Juniors this summer.
Yeah, I haven't been in talks with anyone about that. Obviously, we know it's in August and that the 2002 birth year is still eligible. So I'm not too sure what's going to happen with that. I think obviously I'm going to have a say, but there's going to be a lot from the Jets as an organization, what they think's best for me, and so I'm gonna, be in talk with my agent, be in talk with Chevy and all the people, all the staff. So I have no doubt that they're gonna do what's best for me and what they think's right, and if they think going to the tournament's best, then I'll do it, and if not, then I'll be out a couple extra weeks in the gym and getting stronger. So either way, I'm gonna be excited for whatever happens, but. Like I said, in the past, playing for Team Canada is pretty special. So if that's the case, that'd be awesome. But, if not, we got my mindset on September.
All right, so certainly it does sound like the World Juniors is a possibility for Cole Perfetti, but as he mentioned, he'll be talking to a lot of other people about what is the right decision for him going forward into next season. And one more for Cole Perfetti. He was asked about, just what he learned in his rookie season, getting a taste of the National Hockey League.
Yeah, like you said, there's never a good time to get injured, and I kind of felt like I was finally getting it's going to take a long time to get fully comfortable, but it's getting more comfortable every game. Playing with those guys, it was a lot of fun. We started to put up some numbers and find a groove offensively, and we were playing well, so it was frustrating, obviously, going out, but I kind of just proved to myself that, I can play with guys of that caliber and can make plays with them. And, obviously there's lots to work on, tons of room for improvement. And that's, everyone's like that, but especially me as a young guy coming up, there's playing with those two guys, you learn lots. And it's just kind of proved to myself that, it's going to be a long road ahead, but, I can stay with those guys and play with them and at that caliber of hockey.
So there's Cole Perfetti from earlier today. And I will say this, you've sort of been out of sight, out of mind for the better part of the last couple months, and I think it was pretty clear that he probably wasn't returning. But when you look back, and we will do plenty of looking back and looking ahead on this season, I think the emergence of Perfetti, the way he fit in, playing in the top 6, some of the plays that he made, as he just alluded to, certainly have to get Jets fans excited about what he'll be capable of next season and beyond as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. Great stuff for Michael Remis, cutting that stuff during the program to get it for you here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, hey, Friday, we will be back. We will do a big makeup marble race. Our friends at Canadian Club and great sponsors of both the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk. We've got the hoodies, the master's jacket, if you will, of Winnipeg Sports Talk for winning the marbles. And we'll also do a bonus prize, including some of the new CC ready-to-drink mixed cocktail, Canadian Club, and ginger ale. You can pick it up right now at local Manitoba liquor marts, at local beer stores as well, in singles and in six-packs. Got a chance to try it on the weekend. It is fantastic. It'll be certainly one of the most popular drinks of the summer. And Canadian Club displays in Manitoba liquor marts all summer long, or at least all month long, and a free can to try with your purchase of Canadian Club, and 1750 ml CCs on sale all month long at your local Manitoba liquor marts. All right, let's get Michael Remis back in here. We'll hit the Coolbet lines. And as I said to Dusty earlier today on the Lock Shop, normally I would just go in and use the Coolbet lines. Well, because of the different laws and sports betting and where we are in Nevada, wasn't able to get the Coolbet lines. So the lines that I'm going to give you will be a little bit different. We went through them and actually a little bit better on a number of the teams that I sort of like tonight. But again, get that on the Lock Shop. Check out the lines, and you can make your wagers over at Coolbet. And if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% deposit, up to $200 on your first deposit. All right, a huge slate of games in the National Hockey League. Hurricanes and Rangers. Rangers a very slight favorite in that one, minus 110. The Lightning, minus 345 over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Listen, the Lightning have scored 22 goals in their last 3 games. They seem to be getting the offense going just in time for the playoffs. I think they're going to be getting a puck line wager from yours truly tonight, right behind me at the sportsbook when I'm done. Oilers Penguins tonight. Penguins favor there. Senators home favorite over the Devils. Capitals a bigger favorite, minus 180 I'm seeing against the New York Islanders. The game, I can't wait for this Panthers-Bruins game. I think the Panthers, well, they certainly are due for a loss. I mean, they just continue winning. What is it, 13 in a row right now? I think it might end tonight. Boston as about an even money. Well, it was plus 106 earlier. I see money coming in on Boston right now. I'm looking at plus 105 and minus 104 on Coolbet right now. So obviously, maybe they were watching the Lock Shop and we moved the line again. Leafs massive favorite at home against the Red Wings. Flames a road favorite against the Nashville Predators. The Wild, what's the Coolbet line on that one? Minus 588 against the Arizona Coyotes, and a puck line of minus 2.5. Absolutely crazy number on that one. And then the game of the night, as we mentioned, the Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars. What does Coolbet have on that one, Reem? Is the Dallas? Okay, so Dallas is a slight favorite. And this is what I was saying before. You're always going to get a better number on the opponent of the Vegas Golden Knights in Vegas. Stars, even money at home. Vegas a slight favorite here. It's the other way around outside of Vegas over on Coolbet. Blues and Avalanche. Avalanche has lost 4 in a row. Blues plus 150. I don't mind St. Louis in this game, to be honest. Kraken and Canucks. Canucks minus 200 plus at home. And the final game, 2 teams getting ready for tea times. The Ducks and the Sharks. Sharks a slight home favorite after their win against the Vegas Golden Knights. And hoops tonight, the T-Wolves 6-point dogs in Memphis. And then tomorrow it'll be the Milwaukee Bucks as 10-point favorites. I think they finish off the Chicago Bulls. Great show tonight, Remo. What do you have on tap tonight, other than, of course, a full slate of games in the National Hockey League, and in particular, seeing whether Vegas can keep their playoff hopes alive or the Dallas Stars can book their ticket as the 5th team in the Central to be part of the playoff dance?
Yeah, I'll be watching hockey, as I mentioned earlier in the show. I am in the fantasy finals, so I am looking at some of these goalie matchups. I do. Steven Stamkos might be the hottest player in the league. Carried me last week. One interesting thing to watch for tonight, Carolina have had both of their goalies injured. They've got a real goalie issue. Anderson hurt on the weekend. Ranta hurt and Ranta hurt on the weekend. Anderson hurt before. They are going with in goal the Peter Kochetkov going up against the Rangers. Probably might explain why the Rangers are the favorite there. But yeah, everyone watching this Dallas Golden Knights game. So I'm looking forward to a full slate of hockey. I got to get my DraftKings lineup, and I'm not sure who I'm going to ride with tonight. But Minnesota, hard to step away from them. But it seems like some of these teams that are more balanced scoring, like Minnesota or St. Louis, I kind of stay away and lean towards more of the top-heavy teams in terms of goal scoring.
Well, no doubt about that. And just a quick look at the standings right now, because it has been really tight, and the Rangers are 51 wins and 108 points, and the Hurricanes, 2 wins ahead of them right now, so they could actually pull to within 2 points of the Canes with a win tonight. That being said, it looks like for the most part, we certainly know who's playing in the East. We'll find out. We could find out as earlier tonight who the final 8th team in the playoffs is for the Western Conference, although the Nashville Predators, I guess, have yet to clinch as well at 94 points. Overall, will be a great night of both hoops action and hockey. I can tell you here at Bar Canada at the D in Vegas, that place will be rocking. The book will be busy as we get closer to about 4 o'clock local time here in Vegas for the games to get started. And then tomorrow, we'll have Murat Atesh on the program, and we will get ready for the Jets game number 80, taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. Of course, NFL draft here coming up on Thursday. My guy Andy McNamara is going to meet me down here. I'll hopefully have Andy on live on Thursday. Kind of the last half hour of the program. We'll talk a little NFL and get ready for the draft. And don't forget, Valor FC home opener is on Sunday afternoon as well. Kind of unfortunate that Jet game had to be moved to the same time. But 6-1 win against Ottawa in Valor's last game. A lot of momentum going into the home opener for Valor FC. We'll see whether maybe we can get Phil Dos Santos on the program at some point before Sunday's opener for Valor FC. Listen, that's going to do it for us. Great show today again. If you do want to talk a little bit more about the games tonight, Dustin Nielsen and I have a new episode of The Lock Shop up. Just simply go to our Twitter. You can watch the feed either on my own or at Nielsen TSN 1260. And do us a favor, follow the Lock Shop at Lock Shop Bets. And, of course, all the Winnipeg Sports Talk social medias online at Sports Talk WPG. And it goes without saying, if you haven't already, hit that red subscribe button. Join us daily, 1 p.m. Central, live here on YouTube, and get the podcast on wherever you get your podcast a little later on in and around 3:30 in time for your drive home. Well, another great show here in LV. I'm looking forward to a fun night in the sports book, and definitely looking forward to the Jets Flyers tomorrow and another big show here on WST. Big thanks to all of our sponsors: Canadian Club, Coolbet, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Breezy Bend, Wallace & Wallace, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Royal Sports, Manitoba Battery, Culligan Water, Vita Health. Don't forget, 10% off on Friday for Customer Appreciation Day. Of course, our friends at F Apparel and Wallace & Wallace. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson, live from Vegas, folks. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. from Sin City, getting ready for Jets, Flyers, and NBA playoffs. NHL playoff picture coming into scene, and Murat Atesh has got the athletic fan poll. Look forward to hearing what Murat's hearing from Winnipeg Jet fans. I think we know what the answers are going to be, but we'll talk about it tomorrow right here on WST. Thanks for being with us, and have a great night.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.